All right. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are tuning in from here today. And welcome to our Canadian Alliance for Healthy Schools presentation at the 2021 Shaping the Future Conference. On behalf of the Alliance, I just wanted to say I'm glad that you could join in from wherever you're most comfortable and safe during this unprecedented time. So welcome. My name is Ryan Foy, and I'm the lead for special projects and campaigns at PHE Canada. And as you will soon discover, PHE Canada is one of the stewarding organizations supporting the Alliance's efforts to embed well-being across the K-12 education system here in Canada. And I'm excited to be here with you today to share the who, what, and why behind the Alliance, as well as ways that you can be actively involved in the work of the Alliance following this presentation. So grab an extra cup of coffee and let the virtual learning begin. If you are a leader within the school system, again, welcome. This is a presentation for you. This presentation is part of the leadership stream at the Shaping the Future conference. So if you are a consultant, maybe a school trustee, maybe a school system administrator, again, there will be lots of takeaways for you. And if you are also curious about leadership and taking on more of a leadership role within your school community, there will also be some great takeaways here for you as well. So I just wanted to make note of that before we dived in here too deep. And again, this is a presentation that will just serve as an introduction to the Canadian Healthy Schools Alliance. And you may hear me also refer to the Alliance as that, the Alliance, or as the CHSA. And so you'll kind of hear those three terms interchangeably throughout the presentation. We will begin with the origins of the Alliance. And at the end, we will finish with the next steps that you can take after this presentation to ensure that you're part of the collective impact of the Alliance, okay? Also, if you are on social media and you're on Twitter and on the Whova app, feel free to tweet about this presentation, and you can tag me as well. My Twitter handle is there below at wellnessrf. So you can tag me and also follow along on the Whova app and see if we can get up on the leaderboard. Now, like all things organic, the Alliance has an origin story of its own. So in late 2017, national and provincial Alliance interest holders from across the K-12 education sector met in Ottawa at the PHE Canada Healthy Schools Forum. From this magnetic gathering, a conversation, intention, and passion for supporting each and every school on their journey towards well-being boiled to the surface, as did the need for a better way to work together to support student health and well-being in school communities. Following this, in January of 2018, the Alliance met again at the Shaping the Future conference in Lake Louise, Alberta. These same interest holders, now known as the stewards, which I'll talk about a little bit later, along with a few new faces, gathered together to discuss the idea that percolated just months before of every school in Canada becoming a healthy school community using a framework such as the Comprehensive School Health Framework. Collectively, this is where the group began moving towards a better way, which you can see on the visual in front of you if you look up on the top left. It was in this room and through these conversations in early 2018 where the Alliance began to take on an identity of its own. Following this, the Alliance convened again in July of 2018 in beautiful Vancouver, British Columbia, whereby these same interest holders from across the K-12 education sector and a few other areas as well started to discuss the meat and potatoes of the Alliance. It was in Vancouver that the backbone of the Alliance began to form. Scope, vision, directives, and core infrastructure began to scaffold, and the spine of the Alliance began to take shape. The Alliance on this trip was officially born. Pictured here on your screen are the folks who were in attendance for the meeting in Vancouver, which included researchers, organizations, and folks from within the K-12 education system. Now, moving on in the origin story, in January of 2019, the Alliance convened again in Lake Louise, Alberta, where 26 interest holders began harnessing collective knowledge and resources. Some interested holders officially morphed into now what we call stewarding members or stewards. And this formed the nucleus of the Alliance. And I'll share a little bit more later on who those stewards are. While there was a broad recognition that there was room for added growth and diversity, these initial stewards began moving the Alliance forward at a more rapid pace, and some organizations within the Alliance began adding staff capacity to the workings of the Alliance to increase its collective impact. And I'll talk a little bit later about the collective impact model and how the Alliance does that work. But for now, pictured here on the screen in front of you from beautiful Lake Louise are the Alliance stewards, who I'll introduce shortly, as well as some other interested holders who were in attendance at the meeting. Moving on to the summer of 2019, the Alliance came back to Ottawa for an inaugural summer retreat. This retreat involved mapping out an initial knowledge mobilization plan, further building relationships among the stewards and organization leads, and a strong foundation of trust was formed to allow the Alliance to move even faster in meeting the deep need of nudging well-being forward in Canadian schools. It was in Ottawa where the Alliance decided to direct its knowledge mobilization efforts on 4 key personas that influence the K-12 system. These personas include politicians, school trustees, teachers' unions, and school system leaders. By narrowing in on these 4 key personas, the Alliance began creating a blueprint for action, solidifying a declaration of commitment to its cause, and building a clear public understanding of who the Alliance serves within the sector via its interim website. Now, pictured here on the screen are some photos from the 4-day retreat held in Ottawa. While the work was intensive, as you can see from the various photos, on the top left, you'll see that some stewards and leads found some time to squeeze in a morning run at TD Place in Ottawa. In the fall of that year, the Alliance convened again in Ottawa during the PHE Canada Healthy Schools Forum. It was here that the Alliance began unpacking the how behind the tremendous amount of work that needed to be done to move the well-being needle forward across the K-12 system. It was here that the first knowledge products were shared for feedback and where much of the project work accelerated through the Alliance leads and conversations with interested partner groups in the room. Pictured here on the left side of the screen are various Alliance stewards, leads, and partners from across different sectors. On the right, you'll see a picture from the Healthy Schools Forum, where a few Alliance stewards and leads captivated the room on a comprehensive school health panel and took questions from delegates regarding school health, health promotion, and comprehensive school health as a whole. Now, fast forwarding to 2020, we all know what happened. With the rise of the COVID-19 pandemic in Canada, the in-person gatherings of the Alliance came to a screeching halt. Luckily, much of the groundwork had been laid, creating a foundation for success with the work of the Alliance, thus allowing us to collaboratively be where we are today in this presentation with you. This past year has had challenges, but the Alliance has continued to build its brand, identity, and relationships across the country through various engagements, platforms, and conversations. It also began the diligent process of becoming more forward-facing to better serve the 4 personas that we discussed earlier. it was time to mobilize knowledge beyond the echo chamber of the Alliance and to better activate the sector as a whole. Now, pictured above on the top left, or pictured on your screen, sorry, on the top left, you will see some of the Alliance leads from the various organizations, which I will explain again here briefly, during an Ideas Lab at the OFIA head office located in Toronto in January of 2020, which was just pre-pandemic. So now that you know a little bit about the origins of the Alliance and the Alliance's kind of recent origin story from 2017 to 2020, it's time to talk about which organizations steward and lead the work of the Alliance and introduce you to some of those stewarding individuals. Nationally, here are the 7 different stewarding organizations that serve the backbone of the Alliance. On the left-hand side of the slide, we have the Canadian Association for School System Administrators, or CASA, and we have the Canadian School Boards Association, or they're also known as the CSBA. On the right-hand side of the slide, you will see various organizations as well. On the top, we have DASH, which is Dedicated Action for School Health, and they are based out of British Columbia. We have OFIA, the Ontario Physical and Health Education Association. We have Ever Active Schools, which I'm sure you all know about because you're here shaping the future, but based out of Alberta as well. We have the Circle Lab, which is Dr. Kate Story's team based out of Edmonton, Alberta. And we have PHE Canada, or Physical and Health Education Canada, that is based out of Ottawa. So collectively, these 7 organizations are the nucleus of the Alliance and serve it as the stewards. Now, the CHSA is comprised of a unique group of thought leaders from those 7 stewarding organizations that I just mentioned, who work in and around the K-12 education system and have vast amount of experience. These leaders and their organizations all exist to bring capacity and support to a provincially led education sector, which is often looking for unified, equitable approaches to support things like well-being. This need, along with the common need to help influence decision makers through knowledge exchange and knowledge mobilization, has kept the Alliance both busy and relevant. Similar to what we see with a trophic cascade in nature, the Alliance understands that change at the top of the system eventually trickles down through the system as well. For example, a policy change at the district level ultimately affects each individual student within the district, as well as their families and oftentimes their communities as a whole. These effects and the interconnectedness of the K-12 system has been heightened this past year with the COVID-19 pandemic. I'm sure you are already thinking in your own experiences about a decision that was made in September of 2020 that had tremendous outcomes on how students learned and where they were learning as well. And even to this day, even listening to this presentation, I'm sure there's decisions being made provincially and even regionally that are impacting student health, well-being, and of course, student learning and education. So never has it been this heightened that we understand the interconnectedness within the sector. Now, pictured here on the screen in front of you are those who were involved at the November 2019 Alliance meeting held in Ottawa. I want to specifically bring attention to the 7 stewards from the 7 different organizations mentioned on the previous slide. So, following my mouse from left to right, we have Chris Markham at OFIA. We have Ken Bain from CASA. In the back center, we have Melanie Davis from PHE Canada. And in the mid center, we have Faye Willick from Dash BC. On the bottom left-hand side, we have Brian Torrance from Everactive Schools. We have Dr. Kate Story from the Circle Lab. Excuse me. And we have Nancy Pinch Worthylake from the Canadian School Boards Association, or the CSBA. So these 7 individuals, again, represent the 7 different organizations that steward the Alliance and form the nucleus of the Alliance. So now that you've learned a little bit about the origins of the Alliance and who the Alliance is and comprised of, now it's time to talk about what the Alliance does. Alliance organizations all work together through affiliation, using consistent communication, collaboration, and quasi-integration to achieve this collective impact across the sector, and that's important. By definition, collective impact forms when there is a commitment of a group of actors from different sectors to form a common agenda for solving a specific problem using a structured form of collaboration. Now, in our case, the shared vision is to have every student learn in a healthy environment that lets them thrive and provides a foundation for lifelong success. The mission of the Alliance then becomes to achieve this vision, which is to empower every school in Canada to become a healthy school. Knowing this direction, the Alliance needs to support with the how. We need to allow the system to swerve within the lines while empowering the system to reach its destination, which is ultimately student health and lifelong success. So, simply put, the Alliance helps unify the sector and also helps with the how. So if I'm a school system administrator and I don't know, or I'm curious about how I can increase well-being within my schools in my district, how am I going to do that? And who am I going to go lean on for that support? The who is the Alliance, and the how is the work of the Alliance. So looking at this framework or this model in front of you, the common agenda is a core part of collective impact. And again, back to our origin story in 2017, 2018, coming together, forming the backbone, understanding the common agenda, the magnetic attractor being that well-being needs to be supported within the K-12 education sector across Canada, and it needs to be done equitably, allows the group to rally around that. We have to also have shared measurement, which we are currently doing through our various projects and collecting data, understanding the data, and then measuring those results and improving on those results. And I'll talk a little bit about that later, specifically with one of our projects. Collective impact also involves mutually reinforcing activities. So we have to take differentiated approaches. If we're going to nudge well-being forward within the sector and support all school communities, what works in northern Saskatchewan, as an example, may not work in Newfoundland. And sometimes we have often seen too, early on with the Alliance work, is that there's similar things happening, but it's being told in different ways, or it's being experienced in different ways. So again, back to the how, we have to figure out how to unify the language so that it can be taken and used in other parts of Canada. So again, if I'm a consultant or a system leader or a school trustee, and I want to learn more about what's happening in another part of Canada with well-being in schools, I can take that knowledge and easily utilize that in my area as well. And we're seeing this a little bit in the work that's happening, and we're going to continue to see it as we continue to grow and evolve as the Alliance. And a great example of that is something I'll share a little bit later for time purposes, but I will come back to that. At the bottom here, I do want to talk about continuous collaboration. Collective impact only works if we do continuous collaboration. And a great example of this is our stewards, who I talked about earlier, meet every month. And The leads within those organizations meet whenever is needed, and there's constant communication either via email, phone, text, in person prior to the pandemic. And that communication builds trust, which allows the work to flow at the speed of trust and allows the collective impact to happen. So that's a critical piece. And then finally, the bottom right, the backbone support. I talked a little bit earlier in the origin story about when the backbone formed. And when the backbone formed, there was some organizations that brought staff capacity in. And that's where the Alliance sits today, is many of those stewarding organizations have staff that are supporting the day-to-day work, putting together presentations like this, putting together things that I'll share with you in the next few slides, so that we can continue to impact the sector collectively. So all of those pieces together involve or make up what we commonly know as collective impact. And if you want to learn a little bit more about collective impact, I would encourage you to check out the Tamarack Institute as well. You can just Google the Tamarack Institute, and they have some fantastic resources as well. Now, using evidence-based frameworks for well-being, such as the Comprehensive School Health Framework, which most of you are probably familiar with if you're here at the Shaping the Future conference. You might have also seen different language with health promoting schools as an example. But using frameworks like that one, in combination with the deep experience in school communities, the Alliance supports school system leadership to measurably improve school outcomes, achieve multiple priorities simultaneously, and most importantly, set students up for lifelong success. And we do our work within the system through the following ways: through solving complex problems directly related to well-being within the K-12 system. So if I, again, have a problem, where am I going to go to find the solution? I'm going to go to the well of the Alliance, and they're going to help me with that solution. We do our work through promoting equitable solutions, bullet number 2, to fostering school communities. So again, understanding that anything that we activate needs to be as equitable as possible. And that is going to allow each and every school in Canada to move forward in their well-being journey. Number 3, nudging school communities to move forward. Again, very similar to number 2, we have to promote and we have to nudge. And sometimes it can just be a matter of picking up the phone and having conversations, sharing resources, and sharing success stories, say in our newsletter, and getting information out that allows schools to continue to move the needle and nudge well-being forward. Number 4, through empowering decision makers to support system-wide well-being in schools, right? So this work, we can't just roll it out and say, here you go, right? We have to be actively engaged and involved with school system leaders, and we need to, they need to feel supported, understood, and part of those approaches as well. Finally, we need to seek out positive examples of well-being in action and encourage decision makers, right? So this is one thing that we're doing through our knowledge mobilization work that you're going to see here in the next few months, are surfacing success stories and case studies and examples of well-being in action within school communities and within school districts and within the entire system. And the idea here is that these successes can be, taken, modified, and morphed into and tailored into specific parts of Canada. And we see that at a micro level with schools. We can take an initiative and move it from one school to another, or tailor it from one school to another. And it's similar to that, except a bit more of a high level. So we're looking at how does one policy go from, say, a school district in Drayton Valley to a school district in St. John's, Newfoundland. So really looking at the system level, but taking the same idea that we would typically see school to school. Operationally, the Alliance is actively doing any or all of the following things each and every day. 1, we are mobilizing research insights as we help leaders bring tested well-being practices to life at their district, school, and classroom level. And this is evident in the resources section of the website, which I will share shortly. Number two, we advocate for supportive policy change as we help policymakers at all levels to remove barriers and enact enabling policies. And sometimes they can be soft policies as well. And I'd love to chat with folks about that as well after the presentation. Number three, we bring together partners as we convene leadership from individual schools all the way up to the national level to enable solutions that work across the entire education system. And you can see this already through our origin story. Finally, we share learnings as we identify successful examples, which I already talked about, that works as school districts across Canada experiment and test out and try different models, such as comprehensive school health in their policymaking and their programming and planning. And I'll touch on this as well a little bit more later on. Now, what current projects do we have on the go? This is the million-dollar question. Our projects currently that we have on the go, you see 4 of them up there on the slide in front of you. But number 1, we are piloting and scaling the Healthy School Certification tool in school communities across British Columbia, Alberta, and Saskatchewan. So the Healthy School Certification tool, to give you a backstory, originally was created with BioFia, used in Ontario schools. And the idea here is let's take something that's very, very good, that's evidence-based, and let's figure out how it can work and mold and support various school communities across Canada. And so this is part of that learning journey, part of the differentiated approach that I talked about earlier, informing collective impact. And we're learning as we're implementing in various schools across the country. So that's one really neat project. On a similar level, we are piloting a streamlined healthy school tool in Ontario specifically to adjust for the COVID-19 context across Ontario school communities. And we're learning a lot from that. And we know that schools are potentially changing forever in certain ways with COVID-19. So there will be some learnings there that can be replicated and potentially molded and morphed across the country. Knowledge mobilization and building knowledge products for school trustees, teachers unions, politicians, and school system leaders around well-being, being foundational to student learning and lifelong success. So I talked about the 4 personas earlier, but we are developing things like fact sheets, sharing success stories, infographics, and digital tools and resources that folks can take and use within their circles of influence within the sector to get the knowledge and get the knowledge through the sector, but also get the conversations going back and forth within the sector as well. The last 2 on there, the creation of the National Healthy School Standards, which will serve as a national compass bearing for policy and culture change towards well-being in schools. So right now, there's no true north. So how do we help school communities find that true north? Then how do we, again, take a provincially led sector and find ways nationally to unify that sector? And in our case, unifying it through the common thread of well-being. And so these national healthy school standards will be one of the tools that will help meet that. And we're really excited about that. And finally, the national competencies, which will kind of support the healthy school standards in tandem. And those are going to launch in fall of 2021. Now, I won't spend too much time on this just for time's sake, but I will share. You'll see this real briefly here. All right, on the screen in front of you, you will see our brand new Alliance website. So you are some of the very first folks to have access to this. And I apologize, there's something going on with my browser here. The lines are a little bit off. But when you get this website, when you go to the Twitter account, which I will share shortly, you will be able to see basically everything that I'm talking about will be on here. If it's not on here yet, it will be coming. as well. But there's a kind of, you can go to our About Us section, learn more about the Alliance and what we do, which you've already learned in this presentation. And here we have our Declaration of Commitment, which I will talk about a little bit later as an action and a next step for you. But you can read all about that here on the website. Then you can go over to our resources section and talking about what the Alliance does and sharing those resources. We understand that there's a lot being thrown at schools and there's an oversaturation of a lot of resources. So we have developed a system to really narrow in and provide top quality resources for the sector. So we're not just throwing in anything here. There's a system, there's a method to getting these specific resources up, and you can go through them here. You can check them out and download them as well. When you do sign the declaration, there is an option here to sign up for our newsletter as well. And I'll talk a little bit about that, but I would encourage you to do that. That newsletter right now, I believe, is quarterly. It may increase, but essentially it gives you some of those success stories, events, opportunities, engagement opportunities as well. So I would encourage you to check that box and stay in the loop with the comings and goings of the Alliance as well. And again, you can contact or check out any of the stewards that I mentioned earlier, and you can see all of the organizations here on the website as well. Now, just to finish up, we're going to take the last few minutes here and talk about your role within the Alliance, the next steps that you can take to help the Alliance achieve its collective impact within the system. Now, each and every one of us have a role to play when it comes to nudging well-being within the system. And this is evident, right? We talked about this a little bit before, but within your own role and area of influence, you're probably already thinking about how you can get involved with the work of the Alliance. And we know that this work cannot be achieved alone, and the success of the Alliance truly relies on its impact within the community and across the sector as a whole. Just as it takes a village to raise a child, it takes the Alliance community and its various partners and diverse interest holders to help raise a generation of healthy, happy students. And so on the next slide, I'm going to share with you 5 different ways that you can be actively involved to help grow the Alliance's impact and be a vital part of its vision and the community. All right, so on the screen here in front of you, you will see the 5 different ways that you can be involved. Number 1, signing the declaration. You can read through the bullets of that declaration. It's a lot about what we've already chatted about. Once you're comfortable with that, signing the declaration is one way that you can stay involved. Number 2, through opting into our quarterly newsletter. And again, that's just the little checkbox on the website. So if you check that, that way you can stay in the loop with the Alliance, communications. Number 3, following us on social media. This is the handle on the screen in front of you for the Alliance social media account on Twitter, at CDN School Health. Give them a follow, send a tweet, engage with us. We would love to hear from you, especially if you have some success stories and ideas and some other accounts that we should follow as well. We definitely want to hear from you. Number 4, sharing the Alliance website and one thing that you learned here today with a colleague. So it could be a colleague, could be a friend as well, or another attendee on the Whova app, but share this website once you get the link. You can access the link from the Twitter page as well, and on my Whova presenter profile. But share one thing with a friend that we need to get the awareness out. That this is who the Alliance is, and this is what we do, and we want more people to be involved. Finally, you can email us, send us new resources, ideas, connections, and help us learn more about what's happening within the sector. And again, we recognize, and the stewards recognize that we are a small group, and we're always looking for more folks to be at the table, and also to be involved as active members of the Alliance. So email us, connect with us. I'll provide my email as well. You can contact me through the Whova app, and I can put you in touch with someone specifically as well. And this is an important note. When conversation happens, change follows. And this is why, the conversation may start here with you, but the change it can ignite across the sector can be seen for years to come, right? We recognize as the Alliance that this work it's a big boulder. It's a lot of work to influence the system. And we're doing this all, through this collective impact model. But the work of this, the benefits of this, and the outcomes of this, even though there will be some short term, it's really the long term. And this is important. We're thinking about the long term impact here. And even though it's conversation today, it can be a long term impact if you connect us with someone, share a resource, create a conversation, create space for a dialogue. All those things are super important. And with that, on behalf of the Alliance, I want to thank you for attending today's Canadian Healthy Schools Alliance introduction presentation. As the next step, again, I'd encourage you to visit our website, and I will share that on the Whova app, and give us a follow on Twitter, which I shared as well, and you can access these slides and go back if you'd like. We also want to encourage you to engage with us, engage with any one of the stewards on the Whova app. And you can also ask any questions around today's presentation through the app, and you can email me directly. My email is ryanfoy@phecanada.ca. I hope that I get to see you all sometime in person, and I hope that you stay well and that you enjoy the remainder of the conference. Thank you again for your time, and take care.